I'm going to give this person the opportunity to elaborate. It seems they took difference with something that was said about, yeah, it looks like they took difference with something that was said. So I believe brother or sister Golden, if you could elaborate what you were talking about. I think what they may be referring to are the comments around encouraging or forcing kids to show affection because, in some cultures, I come from a Desi culture and Turkish culture and Arab culture, we see that a big part of respecting your elders is to go up to them, to hug them, to kiss their hand. And, it's subhanAllah, to this day, one of my friends, he's 30 years old. And to this day, he walks up to his dad, his Palestinian dad, he kisses his dad's hand. And that's the ultimate way of showing respect. So what it sounds like, what people could be hearing today is almost a permission to be disrespectful, and it seems like a clash of cultures of this Western, like, oh, believe the kid, give them body autonomy, versus the Eastern, no, like, you're supposed to be respectful to your elders. So maybe that was the question. If you all could share your thoughts, Sister Henna, I'd really be interested in your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a correct understanding of that question. And even if it's not specifically correct to that one, that is a common misconception or commonly held belief. And I think, doing this work in Muslim communities, this is often the challenge that we have, is people are very quick to write off sexual violence work, gender-based violence work as a Western concept. And it's not. Sexual violence happens all around the world. Sexual violence happens in all communities. This is another tool to silence and shame the topic, right? Whenever someone says, this is a Western thing, this is disrespectful, no. There are ways for us to culturally, appropriately protect our children without letting go of our cultures, without moving away from our deen. We just have to make modifications and adjustments. But when people say, no, this is, astaghfirullah, this is against our religion, this is against our culture, this is moving us towards whiteness, or this is moving us towards Westernization, it's false. I'm sorry, we have to move away from that. And the whole reason why people are talking about this topic now is because what we're seeing in the media. And what we're seeing in the media is, the specific case in hand. Yes, it's happening in the West, but it's happening in Desi communities. It's happening in Arab communities. It's happening in our communities all around the world. And so we can no longer keep saying that these things do not exist, or these things do not apply, or that they don't, that we can't appropriately talk about it. We can. And that's why there's Muslim professionals like myself doing this work, because we're looking for culturally, religiously appropriate ways to make it easy to understand and easy to apply in our communities. Dr. Mattson? You're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not really sure what that question was referring to, actually, but just we'll answer this question anyways, which is that, you know what? I don't get any fewer hugs since I started like implementing consent into my life. I still have lots of nieces and nephews, little people that I love, who love me, who come and are happy to see me. And the point is to give them that understanding that, and frankly, I would rather the love and affection come from within their hearts, so that it's sincere. We want sincerity in Islam, for sure. We don't want to train. We also don't want to train children to be hypocritical. Nifaq, or hypocrisy, is a terrible quality, and so to force children to do things, it doesn't mean we don't talk about good manners and adab and things like that, but to force them to pretend that they feel one way when they don't feel that way is a kind of hypocrisy, and that's not something that we want children to be comfortable with.
If I can just add to that more practically as well, when we speak about adab between adult men and women in the West, for example, so when we're talking about job interviews, when we're talking about interactions with our colleagues, we talk a lot about shaking hands, right? And so what is the alternative that we suggest? We say, instead of shaking hands, just put your hand over your heart. This is what our Prophet ﷺ modeled. Why can't we teach that to our children as well? That's another way that we can promote safe touch and safe interactions that also still show respect and reverence to our elders. So why not teach our child that instead, if they don't feel comfortable for some reason, hugging or kissing a stranger, we're usually talking about people who are not in their direct family home. We can also teach them to just put their hand over their heart and give their salams and, ask them to make dua. There's practical ways that we can adjust this to our families and to our culture and our deen. Maybe we
can... it's interesting because sometimes people, non-Muslims, will be so offended by a Muslim not shaking hands with them, right? If they reach out, a woman reaches out her hand to a man, or a man to a woman, and if she doesn't, then they take offense as if you're personally insulting me. But what we do that, it's not personal. It's just, this is how we will, within the guidelines of our religion, or how we personally feel comfortable, or how we understand our religion, the way that we are going to show respect to them, but we don't have to be forced into doing it in a way that other people tell us. No, if you don't do this, then you're not being respectful. If you don't shake my hand and look me straight in the eye. We recognize the injustice of that demand when it's upon ourselves. So I think what we want to do is to put ourselves empathetically in the place of others and think, well, what would it be like if I were a child and I'm being forced to do this thing that I'm not comfortable with?